Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Match It and the Other Guy. Kevin and I are sitting outside my home, as always, at Charlotte, North Carolina, on the banks of Lake Wylie. We have had a lot of rain this morning, Kevin, but it seems finally to have given up.
It's slowed down a bit. It's still quite foggy, quite chilly,
Yeah,
quite wet.
it is quite wet. And if you can hear a drip, 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 that sounds like it's the gutter drip, drip, dripping. That's exactly what it is.
Mystery solved.
That's right. All perfectly natural ambience here. I tell you what, though, talking about natural ambience, where are the geese gone? They probably don't like
they're
being
probably
out
sheltered.
That's right.
Of course, we say that, and the whole flock may come by any moment and interject
It's-
their thoughts into our process.
It's incredibly, other than the drip, drip, drip of the gutter, it's very silent down here today.
Oh, yeah. I noticed that when I first got here. And the fog is lifting a little bit, too. It's foggier when I got here.
Yeah.
Not a half an hour or so ago.
Well, typically when we do these conversations down at the lake here, I have no idea what we should be talking about. We've already been talking for about 5 minutes about nothing. So give us a rough idea of where our conversation is heading today.
All right. Well, you might remember a few months ago, we were just kind of out here having a chat in the evening, and you kind of had some questions about how the American school system operated and things that we did traditionally.
Yeah.
That was quite different than what you did.
Very different,
And
yeah.
we had a good conversation about that. I think it'd be good to revisit that and talk about the differences between how schools are handled in England and here.
Yes, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, well, my experience of education in England was what is known over in England as the comprehensive education. This is obviously in the 60s and 70s. And all state-run schools. And we may have had this conversation before, but there was almost no chance of us going to college and on to university. It was never going to happen. We were always headed towards the trades to be...
Yeah, I remember covering that.
Carpenter, a machinist or whatever. So it was a very basic form of education. But again, because England and much of Europe, even into the 60s, was still rebuilding after the Second World War, I'm convinced in my own mind that that's what the government were trying to do, was to encourage apprenticeship training as opposed to encourage folks to go to college, because the country needed craftsmen.
Yeah.
Different, I think, over in the States.
Yeah. Did y'all have a kindergarten, or do they call it preschool, or some other name?
We had primary school.
Uh-huh.
Primary school, and so our little local primary school down in the village. I can remember being, I think we were 5 or 6 when we started there.
Kindergarten starts at 5 here.
Yeah, so that would be pretty much the same, and then that carried on until, I want to say 9 or 10 when we went to high schools, and that obviously required moving to a different school. But our primary school was, absolutely typical little village school, and much of it was colouring and playing and making models and singing and playing sports and.
And you were already in the manor house at that time.
Yes, yeah, I was.
Now,
yeah.
How far was it? Did you walk to school, or did you get a ride, or they have a bus system?
We
or anything?
used to have a wonderful little minibus that would pick us up, courtesy of the government, of the council, local council, that was run from the local village garage. So every morning we would get picked up by a minibus, and one of the mechanics from the garage would be driving the little minibus, pick us all up, and then sort of go around the houses, the far-flung little farms and whatever, because there was a lot of farming community there as well. So as much as I was isolated away from many of my school friends by being in the manor, many of my friends were also the children of farmers, and those farms were kind of far-flung as well,
So pretty much each stop was just like that family.
That's
it may be little Susie, but it may be Susie and Johnny and Billy.
Yes, it was exactly that. And then in the afternoon, we would jump in the minibus from the local garage, and we'd all be taken home again. Yeah. And then when we moved to high school, the high school was in a much bigger, very small town or a big village called Shepshire, whichever way you look at it. Now it's a town because everything has grown, but back in the 60s and 70s, it was probably more right to consider it a big village. And we went to high school then. I think that was 9 or 10 when we did that.
So then you went till about age 18, so you're like in that school 8 years-ish?
Yeah, well, we were there for let me see now, about 4 or 5 years, I think. And then we went to another college, and we were there for a couple of years until 16, and then left and straight into employment. Yeah.
Yeah, we would have been in the middle of high school at 16
okay.
here.
Yes. But we never had the same sort of, we had years, like first year, second year, third, fourth year. But we never talked about grades. First grade, second grade, third grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I think about it, when you see like something like a TV show that's British-based or whatever, they tend to mean what year you are.
Yes. Now, for folks who are completely unfamiliar with the school system that I'm describing in England and the type of school it was, I would urge anyone to have a look for a movie called Kes, K-E-S, and it was pronounced Kes, for Kestrel. And it was a terrific movie that was shot in the early 1970s. And I think it was up in the north of England, either in Sheffield or Oldham or somewhere around the north. But it gave an absolutely perfect indication of what awful education we as kids were put through in England. So have a look for that film.
Is it a fictional movie or a documentary?
It's a fiction movie based on a novel which was called Kes, and the author of the book escapes me. But I do remember just seeing this for the first time. I thought, my goodness, this is absolutely spot on to what education for the vast majority of kids was like in England in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. Yeah, you'll find it. I'm sure it'll be on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, something to check out.
Yeah. So how about you? Tell me a little bit about American schooling system that I would be unaware of.
Well, we start with kindergarten, and that's 5. And you could have preschools prior to that, and usually that's just kind of like a family choice. You may pick a local one, maybe you do it through your church, or something like that. It's kind of babysitting / getting them ready to, the basics and stuff like that. And every family kind of picks their way to go. And then you enter the public school system, starting with kindergarten. And generally, what you call primary school, we call elementary school.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And most will go through, and every county and area, it may be quite different in how they break them up. But when I started, the school I was at was kindergarten through 6th grade, and then I guess we ended up moving. You probably recall I moved to Florida.
Yes.
So as I finished 5th grade, over that summer, we moved to the rental house that was just kind of until our renters were out of our home in Florida. So it kind of gave us a little buffer until we could move to Florida into the house. So during that summer we moved. So that meant when I started a new school year, I was in a different part of this part of Knoxville, the city I grew up in, and I went to that was called middle school. So I started 6th grade there, and went through half of it because we made the move to Florida literally right after Christmas, right after New Year.
Okay.
So it was actually a good time to move because you're switching semesters anyway. So I spent half of 6th grade in Knoxville, and then started my 6th grade down in Florida. And when I hit the Florida school system, or in Leesburg, Florida anyway, Lake County, they were broken up into where they take their elementary through 4th grade. Then they have a middle school, 5th and 6th, just those 2 grades. And there was 2 of those in our town.
Okay.
There was East and West. And then after you did that, everybody went to the same junior high school for 7 and 8. And then everybody went to the same high school for 9, 10, 11, 12.
Grades we're talking here,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, excuse my ignorance here. So when you went to junior high school, what age are you when you attend junior high?
Well, let's see, I turned 12 when I was in the middle of 6th grade, so 13.
Yeah.
Around 13.
Yes.
I turned 13 that first year of junior high school, 7th grade. But I've heard like some cities, counties, whatever, may have, throughout the country, wherever, they may have junior high as, say, 7, 8, 9. And then your high school is only 3 years. I've heard of that. And I think they just, however their system works or whatever, in different areas. Had I stayed in Knoxville, I really wasn't sure what was going to happen after 6 because I really hadn't gotten that far. I only finished up 5th through there, and I wasn't thinking where I was going to go next. So had I stayed, I would have ended up in the same high school my sister had been many years prior because we lived in the same house. But
yes,
I moved, so there you go.
Yeah, and so the difference between junior high and high school, it's an entirely different school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Different campus.
Yes. So I'm thinking if I can try and relate that back to my education in England, it would have been primary school, high school would have been, I call it high school, you would have called it junior high, and then high school for you guys would have been, I guess, sort of college for us, but it wasn't university college.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah, you just have
for
a
the
different-
last couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Traditionally, I think most high schools throughout the U.S. are 9, 10, 11, because you're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Yes.
And then you're out. And again, most people turn 16 around the middle of that. They start driving. And then you start driving to school and stuff like that, too. So.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, when I look over the Atlantic to the States as a kid from England, the idea of driving to school is just an amazing thing. You know, so for many years, I grew up with this idea that you guys all had college jackets and you're all driving in open-top cars to school, which just this amazing image.
And if it is the 1950s perpetually, we probably did do that. Yeah.
Well, that was the image. That was the impression I always had of American education. Was
Well, I think
exactly
that-
based on that. Yeah.
I think that kind of spurred the conversation that we had quite some time back that led to that you're asking about varsity jackets.
Yes,
and what they were
absolutely.
used for and such.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were, again, and it kind of went back to, I'm not sure of my history, but before the varsity jacket, I think it was the varsity sweater. Back, if you watch old Happy Days episodes
Yeah.
and stuff, like Richie's wearing his and
Sure.
stuff like that. So I think it just evolved.
Usually
to
with
the
one
jacket.
big letter on, like the big off or
Yeah.
whatever it would be.
Yeah,
or
if
the
you go to
big J.
Rydell, it's
Yeah.
R. And if you, we were, of course, Leesburg,
Yeah.
so it was, and we were kind of, our school colors at Leesburg High were orange and black.
Okay.
Which made for an interesting jacket because you had the black body and the orange sleeves.
Yeah.
We looked great at Halloween because we're right in the right color mode. But
Yeah.
which one of the years that we had homecoming, our homecoming dance was on Halloween. I remember that just kind of coincided.
See, that's something else that we simply never had. I mean, we may have chatted about this before, but you guys have all these wonderful, and tell me if I'm wrong, again, this might be just an impression from the movies and watching too much Happy Days, all these wonderful prom dances and events that we just simply never
Yeah, I remember you saying
had
you
anything
just
like
never had a
this.
thought of that.
We never had a prom, we never had anything. We might occasionally have a sort of end-of-year dance get-together in one of the assembly rooms, but it was such a low-key thing and no one really wanted to be there. But absolutely nothing like you guys have on this side of the Atlantic.
Well, traditionally, of course, this is most high schools, if not all of them, throughout the country. They'll do their proms, and where I was, it was the junior senior prom. So you could go twice. You could go as a junior, and then you could go as a senior.
Yeah.
But you couldn't go, attend if you weren't in those grades. And then, but throughout the year, we were always every maybe 3 weeks or so, there'd be a Friday night dance at the school.
Incredible.
Yeah, they would, at our school they did it in two places. They did it at the gym, which I think is traditionally always the place where
Yes,
most of them do
okay,
it.
yeah.
But ours, we'd have it in the cafeteria, which I kind of liked the ones that were in the cafeteria because what they would do is they would just clear out all the tables in the middle
Okay.
and stack them somewhere else. There was built-in booths on the edge, which kind of made it nice because if you
nice.
weren't dancing
Yeah.
and you just wanted to sit and chat with your date or your friends or whomever, you just popped in a booth right there, and you got ready to dance. You just kind of hopped up and went there. And two, you had a lower ceiling, so honestly, the acoustics were better in there. And I always liked the ones in the cafeteria, but I don't know how many schools ever did them that way.
And did you always have school bands playing?
No, it was a DJ, and he'd
Okay,
be playing.
right.
I can't remember his name now, but usually it was the same guy. And he just had a fairly good sound system and a microphone, and he'd have the mirror ball. And
Yeah.
he'd shine the light on the mirror ball and all that. And he just had a good selection of, I'm sure, records back then. He would literally just put the platters on and start the next one as one would end.
Yeah.
And it was the music of whatever was popular at that time, whatever was being played on MTV.
Yes, it
you
wasn't all.
danced to.
Yeah, it wasn't all music from the 50s then, as I would
No,
imagine.
no, no. Yeah, in our era, it was Prince and Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and whomever else, Ready for the World or Salt and Pepper
Yeah.
or something like that.
Oh wow, yeah. And sports, of course, seem to be a much bigger thing for schools in the States than ever it was over in England. To be part of the school team on any particular sport seemed to be something to aspire to. Is that right? You wanted to be a part of the team? Was that a big thing?
It depends, but yeah, I mean, most every school always the football team is usually the central focus, because you have rivals and you play the next county over and all that, and they get to you get a built up rivalry going. But like our school, I can just tell you right off the top of the head, we had football, we had baseball, we had a golf team, we had tennis.
Did you? Wow.
We had weightlifting. I believe while I was there, they formed the soccer team. I believe that was in my era of being there that they formed the soccer team. I'm probably forgetting a couple swim. There was swimming and diving. So
Incredible.
yeah, we had all kinds of stuff.
And these wonderful facilities to enable it to all be played. And
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a pretty nice gym. I couldn't tell you. This was the mid '80s when I was there, and I couldn't tell you when the gym was built. But it was a nice gym. There was a weight room. We had the football field on the campus. We had the track around. Traditionally, they'll put the track around it because it's good use of
Yeah.
the same space.
Yeah.
The bleachers can serve for both. So the track was around that. The baseball field, I think you just you use the municipal, the ones that belong to the city,
okay.
down at one of the parks.
So how would you get there to play baseball from school? Would everyone walk down, or was
No,
it?
no. It was a little further than that. You'd bus over.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much any team sport that you were going to be playing another school or something, and you may be at their site.
Yeah.
So everybody would pile in the bus that was assigned for that job that day, and
Yeah.
the driver would take you over there. And
It sounds absolutely magical to me, Kevin. Again, I mean, I don't want to keep giving this impression of great hardship in England. But I mean, we never had sort of dedicated sports facilities. We did have a gymnasium, sure we did, but I can't remember an awful lot of equipment being in there. But things like, there wasn't really a running track. I mean, there may be a track marked out with white paint lines on the grass, but it wasn't a permanent track. Bleachers, what are you talking about? There was no one going to watch us play sports. We had none of that, absolutely none of that. And the soccer pitch, football pitches, I should say, talking about English football, but soccer pitch, that was just marked out, as was the cricket pitch, but there wasn't a dedicated place to play all rugby or anything else. It was just one big, rather uneven field, where we played whatever it was at the time. But very little actually in the way of organised sports. But we took part in sports. I think at least twice a week. I mean, we had to do it. It wasn't the most pleasant experience because the showers were all freezing cold and all of that stuff.
well, we call that PE here. Your PE class.
PE lessons, yeah, physical education lessons. So we had to do that, yeah.
Well, either I can't remember if this just happened by chance or either I strategically planned it that way, but I perfectly made it where PE was my last period of the day.
Okay.
Whatever days I had it. It wasn't every day of the week,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So if I was hot and sweaty, no problem. I just got in my car and went home.
Yeah. No, you
So-
say you arranged it like that. Could you arrange what lessons to take throughout the day? Could
Yeah.
you really?
Yeah, I'm
Gosh.
sure you just couldn't pick hodgepodge willy-nilly. You've got to, okay, they're only offering this at a certain time. But yeah, when you start laying out, and actually you did that in junior high to an extent. I think you could choose some things that were specifically geared toward your interests, but definitely in high school. You had to take certain core math and you had to
Really?
take certain core science, but you may pick one or the other out of those. And then
Yeah.
you had your electives, which were, I took graphic design, and always had art. I took art every year. Every year I
Wow.
could. I think I did it, I'm pretty sure I did it every single year I was there, I was so inclined in my interest anyway.
I mean, just clarify this for me in case I've got this wrong. So you could decide, hey, at 4 o'clock, or whenever the lessons change, at 4 o'clock on a Thursday, I'm going to take chemistry.
Yeah, if it's offered at that time. Yeah, we had periods.
Wow. So what luxury.
We had 7 periods in the day.
Yeah.
So, and they were, I think, 50 minutes long, maybe 55. I think 50.
Okay.
So you'd sign up for that block, and then there was 2 lunch periods, and there was 2 of them. So it kind of how your schedule fell
Yeah.
is where your lunch ended up being. You may be at the first lunch or the second lunch, because they just had to accommodate, half the kids at one time to serve them and such.
Right.
So you would pick whatever period is this. I forgot how we juggled it all now to pick them and stuff like
Well,
that.
it seems remarkable. I've never, I didn't know that happened. I mean, once again, the austerity of English education, we would arrive at 9 o'clock, I think is when we started, and it was, I think our lessons, I want to say they were about an hour long. I think they were like an hour long, and occasionally we'd have double, whatever it would be, double English or double chemistry,
yeah.
or
If something needed it, yeah.
yeah, double falling over on the playing field, doing whatever we were supposed to be doing because no one could really figure it out. But,
Well, if you started at 9, what time in the afternoon did you wrap up?
I want to say it was 3.
Okay.
It's about 3 o'clock, and then everyone back on the buses to go home. So
Yeah.
from high school, that was quite a coach trip because it was a good, well, I don't know, maybe 10 miles, so back home.
Yeah, we were 7:30 to 2:30 at high school, so it was an early start.
Yes, I've seen that in the city. Yeah, you guys do start very early. And again, I'm going back to the 60s and 70s, and things may have changed out of all recognition in England, but we never used to start that early. we were getting up around 7 o'clock to get dressed and do whatever we needed to do, breakfast, and then walk down to where the bus would pick us up, you know, and all that stuff. But I have a feeling we used to start at 9 o'clock.
One thing I did, now this was my senior year, because too, you're kind of getting toward the end, you know, if you've done everything and gotten all your requirements and stuff like that. So in senior year, I took, they called it study hall, or I think they might have even called it being a teacher's aide, but I arranged it where my first period of the day on that, it was late, I think it was a whole year, it might have been that last semester, I was a, quote, teacher's aide for the drafting teacher. I'd already had drafting classes. Those are two of my electives. I did at least 2 years of drafting, which I really liked.
Okay.
And so I scheduled that for the first hour of the morning. So really you're in there and you're just at a table and you can kind of do whatever. I mean, not get in trouble or anything. You're just kind of left to your own devices.
Yeah.
But if the teacher says, hey, I need you to take this note to the principal's office for me or something like that, you're there to do that.
Yeah.
But he didn't need that 99% of the time. So what I would do is that left me an hour. I didn't have to do homework at home as much because I always knew I had an extra hour the next day.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as pressured to get stuff done the night before. Always had, you know, when I'd hit school and I'd be kind of awake and you're kind of getting going in the morning, your synapses are firing pretty well in the morning usually.
Yes, yeah.
Hopefully.
Right. Hopefully.
So I would get a lot of homework done in that first hour that I had to get done for that day. So.
Did you have homework every day or every night to do?
No. I mean, it's hard to remember now, but no, I mean, not every night. Or some nights maybe a heavy amount just because X amount of teachers decided to give you something, or maybe just light because the way it fell, you're lighter.
Yeah.
But I always tended to get it done, you know, after dinner, and I'd always have the TV on. My method was I would always be in my room, have the TV on. I didn't sit at my desk. I just didn't like that. I had this board that I used to just sit on the bed and use the board to bear down on.
Oh, wow, okay.
Would
Yeah.
do my studies, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, how, as an average, how many hours a night would you be doing homework? 2 or 3 hours? Or?
No, it's hard to remember now, but let's say 1 to 2 is my guess.
Yeah. I used to quite like homework. I like this. I like the idea of working in quiet, and I would take to doing homework. In fact, a couple of times I remember my dad would tell me to stop doing it. Stop that homework. It's never going to do you any good. Because he thought I was doing too much, you know. But I'm in the middle of nowhere. And when it's not a sunny night, or you're not going to be out in the woods or playing in the gardens of the manor house, I've got to do something. So, I mean, I quite like the idea of just sitting there and studying, you know, and going through the workbook. And yeah, but my dad did stop me a few times for doing that, you know, just doing it too much. But that was probably my favourite time of the day, really, was doing homework. I liked it.
Yeah.
Our physics teacher, I think his name was Des Fell, if I remember right. It was a great chap, Des Fell, and I enjoyed physics. But he had this rather progressive attitude towards homework, where he just said, "You don't need to do the homework," which we all thought meant, "Well, don't do the homework." Then great. But later on he said, "Look, I'm not going to force you to do that homework. It's up to you. You either want to study the class or you don't want to study the class. But I'm not going to. If you don't want to study it, I'm giving up with you already.
Yeah.
Stay here and work if you want to work. If you don't want to work, forget it and go home."
Yeah, many teachers are different, and of course, people, you know, how they study and how they like to study are totally different. So, yeah. I couldn't stand in a quiet, just being quiet and doing something. That'd make me crazy. I'd have the TV on, music on, something. I've got to have stimulus somewhere.
I had another teacher that threatened to throw us out of we were on, like, you know, in our school we'd have like two or three stories high, you know. One teacher had always threatened to throw us out the window if we spoke in his class. Oh, the joys of being a kid at school.
Oh, yeah. If we got deeper into this and started telling stories, I've probably got a million of them, but gosh, yeah, we had a good time. And too, and one thing I noticed, you know, moving from even Tennessee down to Florida, down in Florida, almost everything was outside. You know, the hallways were just aluminum-covered walkways. Whereas, you know, in Tennessee, and I'm sure anywhere up north and stuff like that, you're enclosed.
Yeah.
But we just weren't, you know, I just wasn't used to that system. And you went down there, and they were, you know, Mason buildings, but, you know, they had the doors literally open to the outside.
What's a Mason building?
Well, like a cinder block. They were made, made of masonry.
Okay, right.
So it wasn't
right.
like they were, you know, just sheds or anything, but
Yes.
they were.
So each classroom was its own self-contained building, if you
No,
like.
actually, what they would be is rows of them. Like you would turn down the little walkway,
Yeah.
and there might be 3 doors on the right, 3 classes down that
Okay,
walkway.
right.
And if you went, there whatever feet to make the right, it'd be another row of them.
Yes.
And that's how this one was set up. I'm sure different schools are architecturally different, but we did have what we called the main building, and it was kind of not an L shape because if you actually went in the front gate, which nobody used, it's more ornamental than anything, you go through the front gate and you'd walk up and there was this fountain, and if you went around the fountain and kind of kept the direction you were going, you would hit the main office. But if you turned right or left, it would take you either into, I guess, the right wing or the left wing or east wing, west wing, whatever they wanted to call
Yeah.
it. And then, but we always came in through the back door, just the way the parking lot was set up and the way you went. But that was a 2-story, self-contained, fully air-conditioned, heated. Everything was in one area. So if it's pouring down rain, all your classes were in there.
Yeah.
You're better off. But everything was covered. The walkways would get you to somewhere, but it's Florida, so it's mostly warm all the time. So.
Yeah. And how were your lessons? You say were 50, 55 minutes long. Were they punctuated by an alarm bell type bell ringing?
Yeah. Throughout the school, I guess the same bell control.
Yeah,
was
we
the
had
same.
we had the same thing. And we used to play. This is completely disconnected from education. We used to play this game, my school pals and I. Whenever the class, when the bell rang to end the class, we would have this. We used to call it the mad dash to get from one lesson to the other. And if it was down several flights of stairs and along the school, the walkways to a building that was some distance away, there was just mad clatter of people dashing down the stairs to see who could get there first.
Just for
fun, obviously. But one of my school pals had figured this system. I remember it to this day. It was such a genius. Obviously, the teachers didn't want us to do this, and we were supposed to walk everywhere and not run.
Yeah.
And so one of my school friends had figured out that when the school bell, when the lesson bell rang to end the lesson, if he got hold of the door and flung it open with all his might, he could be out of the door and dashing down the stairs before the door slammed into the wall. So he was gone. And so the next person out, whoever it was, let's say it was me, for example, it would be, match it, stop! So I'd get into trouble for opening the door, which of course was nothing to do with me. I was just the next one out, whoever it would be, But I remember it to this day. He absolutely had this figured out. He always had the jump on us every lesson because he'd wait for that door to slam into the wall, but he'd be gone.
I never remember us being that eager to get to the next class. I will say that.
Believe me, it wasn't the desire to get to the lesson. It was just the desire to play in between lessons.
Well, I mean, let's say you were in the main building and you had, your next class was, 1 story down and a few doors down.
Right.
You're all set. You got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
But if you were on the side with the chemistry building and you had to make it all the way to the gym,
Yes.
you better hit it because, and I forgot how long we had between 5 minutes,
Yeah.
maybe more. It might have
Yeah.
been more. It's hard to remember now.
Yeah.
But
you had to be there on time, I'm assuming.
yeah, I mean,
you've told me the
fortunately, if you did have an understanding teacher or
Yeah.
coach, you go like, dude, I've got to come from all the way over there. I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
And if they were cool about it, they understood. But yeah, I mean, it just depended on how your classes fell, as to where you had to be.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, as much as I paint the picture of my education in England as being rather odd, it was an experience shared by countless hundreds of thousands, if not millions of others. But I, on the whole, remember enjoying school. My school years were certainly high school, I think, because I think in those years you leave what I would call primary education, go into high school, so kindergarten, elementary. That's when you start to form those friendships that will last a lifetime. And I still have friends now,
Sure.
friends that I met when I was 10, 11, when I first went to high school in what I would call year 1. I mean, one of my best friends, I mean, I'm still in touch with him now, but we met on the first day at school. I remember I didn't know anybody. We were in Shepshed, and of course I was associated with a village on the outskirts of that. But I needed to borrow an eraser. I'd done something wrong in one of my books, and this lad he'd got an eraser on his desk there, and I went up to him and got into a conversation with him and said, "Can I borrow your eraser? I need need to make a, need to cross something out. And that we are friends to this very day. I talked to him only the other day as a result
that's
of that.
great.
Yeah.
Well, something I definitely wanted to cover, because I remember how curious I was about it. You said in England, private schools are the public system,
Yes.
and public
Yes.
schools are the ones that you kind of arrange to go to.
Yes,
which
exactly.
is totally opposite from here.
Yes. Well, yes. It would be too easy to have it the same, wouldn't it, really? That's right. So what I would consider to be public schools would be, let's say the one we've all heard of probably is Eton or Harrow. They would be considered to be public schools, yeah.
So then everything, it was just considered private because it was like private to the local area or something like that? maybe, or-
Well, you had to apply it sort of to a private establishment to get into them, But that's, I hesitate to say that's the class system at work in England, but that's the class system at work in England, really. And for the rest of us oinks, we're all going to the comprehensive schools.
I haven't heard the term oinks until we go back to University Challenge on the young ones, which is good that you brought it up, though.
Yeah, well, so there it is. Hopefully the whole system has changed somewhat, but it was very basic education. I don't think the government had an awful lot of money. I've done okay out of it, right? What can you say? It's the experience that we all go through, isn't it? Good or bad, but at least it gave you an insight of what may be possible in the rest of the world.
Now, if you started, say, in the very first year of primary, and you went all the way through the college, after high school and the college, did you stay with generally the same group of students through that whole time?
No. Our primary school and college were kind of the same group of people, but what I would consider to be high school, junior high, was in a different location, and the guys and girls from that school, they went to a different college after that in the same locale. So my high school days, at the side of the high school was a finishing school, like a college, if you like, what we talked about earlier on, 15, 17, that age group. And all the kids from Shepshire and that village, they went to the different school. And because we were from a geographically different point, we were bussed back to another college for the finishing years at college, yes. It's a great shame, actually. I wish I'd have been able to stay. You form such bonds with folks at school that all of a sudden they got sort of split up again and we had to go to different schools, which was a bit sad, really.
Yeah, I will say, again, I wasn't in the Lake County, Florida system until middle of sixth grade, but I'm sure, and I can't remember how many elementary schools there were there. There probably weren't that many, but then everybody, as they converged, like I said, by junior high, you're carrying on with these same people. And if you grew up in that town, I'm sure you knew other friends and stuff. So a lot of those people just, grew up completely together and stayed with the same group.
But my memory of high school for me, junior high, again, we just talked about it. You form bonds. You're right at that age, that age where you're forming bonds that last a lifetime. But I felt very comfortable in that school. We all knew one another. There were no strangers, and I guess we all started to form sort of cliques or little groups. There was the guys that loved to play soccer, football, and I found myself in that group that we liked to read and we liked English and we loved Monty Python and that sort of whatever sort of little clique or group that you want to call that. We all felt very comfortable in each other's company, and we felt accepted and wanted, even in this quirky, comprehensive education of England in the 60s and 70s. It felt like we felt not wanted. Well, yeah, wanted. We felt sort of involved, I suppose. And then when we went to college after that, and we all got split up from each other for those final 2 years, that was taken away from us, and we were all of a sudden surrounded by strangers again.
Now, at what point it was when all the students were the most at one time? About how many did you have at one?
Oh gosh,
school?
I'm going to say in comparison to the States, a much smaller number. I want to say that high school we probably had maybe 500, 600 kids.
Yeah, that is very small.
Yeah. I might be way off there, but I mean, thinking down to the size of the building, it's another thing, isn't it? When you go back, you have a look. Unfortunately, my high school has been demolished fairly recently, but you know, on the odd time that you drive past where we went to school as kids in England, you look at the school building, it's so much smaller now as an adult.
Yeah.
Isn't it right? These things look so much bigger when you're a kid. But yeah, I'd think 600 maybe. And how about for you?
My high school was about 1,400.
Oh wow.
You know, and still,
Yeah.
and it was still a small city.
Was it really? Yeah.
It's hard to say town. Leesburg was a city,
Yeah.
a small city, but it's the kind of setup where it's the one high school for Leesburg, whereas the next county over may have the one high school for that
Yes.
small town or city. So, you know, it was the one. And I'm not sure, you know, had I stayed in the Tennessee system, there was many high schools in Knoxville,
Yeah.
but how big the class would have been, or the school would have been at the one I would have gone to, I'd probably an easy research, and I probably know some people that end up going there actually.
Now let me ask you this: if you could choose one movie that would represent to me the education system that you went through in the United States in comparison to my comprehensive education in England, what would it be? What movie do you think would kind of sum up your education?
Trying to nail down to one might be kind of difficult, but I would think probably because it was my era and these came out during high school. I think just watching the John Hughes movies of that era are
okay.
going to take you right down the right path.
Yeah. So what were the title of one or two of those?
Oh, let's see. You got 16 Candles, Breakfast Club,
Yeah, okay.
Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. Oh,
all those
that
give
one
a
I'm
good,
very familiar with.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
often comedic, but
Yes.
you know, not off the accuracy of what it was like back then.
Yeah, so not actually the Grease or American Graffiti images that I have over in the States. Over in
That
England,
would have
back
been
in
well
the
before
States.
my time, and I'm not sure how truthful those were.
That's right. Yes, well, as I said, I think for me it would have been Kes, which I think was a Ken Loach film, Kes. It's a Ken Loach film, and I'm sure if you looked on YouTube, if the whole movie isn't there, there'll be clips of it. And I do know that there's a wonderful clip of the football game or soccer game. So when we were talking about the stark contrast between sporting facilities, if anyone is interested to look just how austere or sparse the sporting facilities were in comprehensive education, have a look for that one clip. The football playing clip from Kes is a wonderful thing with Brian Glover, the British actor playing the gym teacher or the physical education teacher. It's a remarkable insight of just how different education is on different sides of the Atlantic. Well, we better call time on this. I
think we roll right
End
through.
of the school day, as you
Yeah,
could say, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
The final bell's going to ring here in a minute.
That's right. Well, I can hear the geese are back out on
Yeah.
the lake after the rain.
Well, we had to say it about them being quiet, and they had to, let's say, show up at some point, and here they are.
Yeah. All right, gentle listener. Well, thank you very much that was fun, wasn't it? I enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably one that we're going to have to go back on because there's, again, a million stories. From
Yes,
those
they absolutely
eras.
are.
We'll pick a topic related to that and move on.
Join us again for another conversation down on the lake. Bye for now.
Great. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.